known as the Cajun Demonologist,
fireman,
teacher of the Demonology 101 and spiritual warfare, and
an ordained minister.
So let's welcome Jereme.
Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How are y'all doing?
We're all good, thank you.
See you good.
Oh, sorry, we're in.
We're in.
Oh, we've been so excited about this, Jereme. Oh gosh, for the viewers at home.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
The viewers at home are going to ask questions too. We can see them and we'll read them out if that's okay, Jereme.
Awesome. Absolutely. I love to get asked questions. I don't even mind the hard questions either. So if you got a hard question you want answered, shoot.
We've got some
courses
coming up.
Well, we've been so excited about this, haven't we?
Yeah.
Because it's getting down, dark and dirty with the paranormal, isn't it? You deal with the stuff that nobody wants to deal with, the scary stuff.
Unfortunately, yes.
You must have balls of steel, Jereme Leonard.
Well, not really. I mean, knowledge is power. I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to demonology and spiritual warfare in general. And that's kind of my protection, really. There are certain ways that demons operate, things they can and cannot do. There are certain foundations, components to spiritual warfare itself. And when you understand those, then you have a really good, successful rate at protecting yourself against dark entities.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Wow, we're gonna get some questions in and let's rock the boat.
Let's rock the boat.
Okay, so let's we've already done that.
Yeah.
Bit. I think so. Obviously the first question I think is going to be a little bit softer. Is obviously, so when and how old was you when you first started getting into the paranormal world and the unknown?
So let's see. I've got into the paranormal. Look, really and truly, whenever I first got into the paranormal, I really couldn't say that I believed in ghosts. I'm gonna tell you how I got started. Me and my cousin was at his house drinking a couple beers and watching Ghost Lab on television. This goes to show you how far back this was. And afterwards, we decided to go play paranormal investigator in our local cemetery. Well, we ended up capturing something that we really couldn't explain on film, and we wanted to see if we can capture something like that again. So then Paranormal Society of Ponchatoula was formed. Now, this is before you had a lot of paranormal teams, and we got really popular in the town that we live in. And we had a little local television show that aired on a local television network in the parish that we live in. Most people call them counties. Here in Louisiana, we like to be different. We call them parishes. And to say that I truly believed in ghosts at that point, no, I just thought it was, look, being a firefighter, I'm a thrill junkie, obviously. So I thought it was cool to possibly have a door slam in your face by something that's not there, right? That's terrifying and thrilling all at the same time. So that's kind of how I got introduced to it.
Right. Wow. Awesome. It's good. You got a nice little background story. You started off, like you said, just drinking, just chilling,
exploring.
Yeah,
absolutely. It was just something fun to do, really. I mean, that was kind of the whole thing in a nutshell. Yeah.
Found the passion to it.
And you're an ordained minister, aren't you? Since 2007.
I am an ordained minister.
Oh. So what made you go down that road then?
Well, whenever I had career day in high school, trust me, I never said I wanted to be a demonologist. In fact, it found me, to be honest with you, and I've tried to run from it several times throughout the years. But, to me, it's a true calling. And when it's a true calling and it's what you're meant to be, no matter how far you run from it, the more you run from it, the more it gets pushed into your face. So I'll tell you a quick story of how I got into demonology in particular. Well, so the team that I was with, Paranormal Society of Ponchatoula, at the time, we received a phone call from a lady in a small country town called Mount Hermon, Louisiana. And she claimed she went to the Myrtles plantation and a demon followed her home and it was terrorizing her and her 3 daughters. Now, to be honest with you, we thought she was crazy because the Myrtles plantation is a very, it's a tourist attraction. You have thousands of people that go to this place every year. I mean, it's well known, especially here in the South, as one of the most haunted plantations in the state of Louisiana. But you mean to tell me a demon followed you home, right? And you have all these people that visit this place every year. Right, whatever. But hey, if you let us film it and put it on television, we'll come. Well, as faith would have it, that night, we went to the house to do an interview with the client and just try to get a feel of what the house was like before we brought all our equipment and set up, because we had a lot of equipment. I mean, we had a trailer that we pulled behind our truck. I mean, that's how much equipment. We had thousands of dollars worth of stuff. And I ended up seeing an entity in the house that night with my own two eyes. Now, you know, when we think of a spirit or a ghost or an entity, we think of kind of like this translucent, you know, figure that you could somewhat see through. That's not what I saw. This thing was as solid as a person. And I was looking at it through a mirror, and it was standing in the doorway, and it was 7 foot tall. And the only reason I know that is because the door frame on doors are 7 foot tall. Yeah. Now, this thing looked really strange. The first thing that I noticed was his arms were twice as long as a normal person's. They come past its kneecaps as it was standing there, and his fingers were twice the size of a normal person's fingers. But what really struck fear in my heart was whenever I got to its face, there was eyes, but there was nothing else. There was no nose, no mouth, no ears, nothing. It was just eyes. Gosh. And ladies, I will tell you, it scared me so bad that I ran out of that room, grabbed my cousin, and told him we had to leave now. And he kept asking why, and I wouldn't answer him. I just said, get in the car, we have to go now. And we left that place, and I'll never forget, the vehicle we was in had power locks, and as we was going down this long driveway, the power locks kept going up and down by themselves until we got onto the main highway. Now, I had no intentions on ever returning to this home, but being a father, whenever I got home that night, there was an image that stuck in my mind. They had an air mattress in the living room, and they had crucifix all the way around it, and that's where Joy and her 3 daughters slept at night. They slept together, and that really, you know, affected me deeply. So my thought was, look, I don't have to go back, but I'll get them help, right? So I went to a local minister and to try to get help for him. And basically the minister kind of told me I need to stay away from people like that. And it really took me by surprise. Yeah. So then I went to the Roman Catholic Church in the town I live with. Hey, look, they got exorcists, right? They deal with this kind of thing all the time. Well, the vibe that I got from the priest was that, you know, because he kept asking me if she was Catholic, and I told him no. And I kind of got the feeling that, well, if she was a Catholic, then the church wouldn't, you know, get involved. So Jereme, with the big heart, you know, that he has, decided, well, if nobody else is going to do it, I have to do it. So I spent the next 6 months of my life not knowing anything about demons other than what I learned in Sunday school when I was a kid. And I was basically a barrier between the entity and the family. And after about 6 months, I was able to find someone to perform an exorcism on Joy. Now, after that took place, I got out of the paranormal field because I seen the dark side, and I seen how dangerous that it can be and how it really affects people, you know, on a deep level. And I ended up writing a book about my experiences in that house called The Dwelling of Dark Entity.
Well, we can ask about that, yeah.
Right. So it wasn't long at all after the book was published, I received a friend request from a priest on Facebook. Now, I didn't know priests could have Facebook, but they can. And his name was Father Joseph Padre, and he sent me a message basically, you know, saying how I touched him. You know, that he read my book and it touched him deeply because he was an exorcist with the church for 30 years. And I didn't make myself out to be a hero in the book at all, because I'd done a lot of things that could have got me, or especially those 3 young girls, hurt. But, you know, when he told me he was an exorcist with the Roman Catholic Church, naturally he had my uninvited attention because I had a million questions that I wanted answered. And we struck up a friendship, like almost a father and son. And you know, several months later, he asked me, he said, Jereme, I want to train you in the art of exorcism. And the first time he brought it up to me, I told him no. But Father Padre is very persuasive man. Indeed, trust me. So finally I gave in, and I flew to Philadelphia, which is where he lived. And I stayed with him for about 6 weeks. And he taught me, you know, demonology, spiritual warfare, the theology of things. And you know, I studied demonology probably for about 3 years before I even became active, before I took on my first case. And, you know, I can say this, Father Padre passed away about 6 years ago. And, you know, when he passed away, I was really worried because there was a lot of stuff that I still didn't know. But, you know, as faith would have it, it would seem that God always put the right person in my path to further my knowledge on the craft whenever I needed it. So, you know, that's how it's always been for me. I've always found the right people at the right time and things like that, and found myself in the right times at the right places and things like that. And now, you know, I'm pretty well known as a demonologist. And now I have a very unique gift of taking something very complex, such as, you know, the wording of demonology and spiritual warfare, because it's really complex, but I have a very unique way of simplifying it so that your average everyday person could understand what I'm telling them. Yeah. And I've learned that, you know, that is very good and useful, you know, in my craft, because, you know, when you try to explain demonology in a theological sense, most people get lost, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like you're talking a different language to them. So, you know, with that unique gift that I have, I'm able to really connect with people and have them understand exactly what it is that I want them and need them to do.
Because in the what we see on movies and TVs and things like that, doesn't Exorcist have to be clarified with the Vatican? But I assume if you really believe in something, you can just... I'm
going to tell you this, and this is something that I asked Father Joseph Padre whenever he first wanted to train me in exorcism. I was like, well, exorcism, that's a rite of the Roman Catholic Church. You know, don't you have to be a priest in order to do this? And this was his exact words. He said, Jereme, how can someone judge what is in a man's heart? He said, people get into the priesthood for many different reasons. Some people, they're hiding or running from something. Other people get into the priesthood simply because it's a job. You know, the Vatican takes care of them. They never have to, you know, worry about money. They are taken care of, you know. And who is another man, which would be a cardinal, would have to give the right to someone to perform an exorcism? So, yeah. you know, that comes from a higher power, a divine power. Like he says, you never know what's in the heart of a priest. Like he said, he knows many a priest that truly don't believe in God. It's just a job to them. So, you know, look, it's all about having the authority and the personal relationship with God himself. Jesus says, believe in me, and I shall give you the authority to tread on the heads of serpents and cast out demons. Okay, so with that, you know, that's here. It's just like church in general. A church is nothing more than a gathering place for fellow Christians to worship together. The church truly lies in the heart, you know, and that's where the authority is. It's in the mind and the heart. And to be able to do and be given the authority when it comes to spiritual warfare, you have to do it for the right reasons. You can't do it for a selfish reason. Look, you can fool the world and pretend to be a humble person, but when you go against that entity will know everything about
you.
Spread you to pieces.
Absolutely.
It will use your deepest, darkest secrets because it knows everything.
And it'll spit it out for the world to know.
Yeah.
Trust me, it will destroy your life, you know. So with that, you know, you have to be pure of heart. Pure of heart is the power whenever it comes to spiritual warfare and demonology. You are doing something else for someone with a selflessness reason. You're not gaining anything out of it whatsoever.
You're helping a family out that are terrified.
Yeah. Like
you said, you met that lady and you thought at first, you know, she's a bit crazy. You then actually saw it and you're thinking, no, I need to help this lady.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. Think about this, you know, people especially that's being oppressed by demons. Look, possession is fairly rare. Oppression, on the other hand, is fairly common. You know, these entities will have these people truly believe that no one can help them. All right, so then here you are, the demonologist, and you talk to this person. And for once, this person has this slight bit of hope. Wow, this person can help me. So what happens when they do that is they are now inviting me in, okay? See, a demon has to have a legal right to someone. A demon cannot just see someone walking down the street and say, I want to possess them. It does not work that way. In fact, a demon cannot do anything against our free will, okay? So you have to, in fact, invite a demon into your life. Now, look, that's a lot easier than you would think, okay? So, but what happens is that person invites that entity into their life. So then as the demonologist, when they invite you into their life, so now you and that demon are on a level playing field. Now it becomes against the will of the entity, against the will of the exorcist at that point. Now the only difference is the entity can lose and fight another day. The exorcist, on the other hand, he can't lose, because if he does, it's going to destroy his life.
Yeah.
God, it's all
God.
It's super interesting.
Yeah.
Everything. It's like you hear, obviously everyone has different methods and different beliefs, different stories, and then you can hear yourself with passion with it, and you're there to help people, and it's exciting to know more about it.
I am very, very passionate when it comes to it. I am a true student of the theology. It's funny whenever you study all the different theologies and folklores and all of these things, you see, even folklores, all these things have an origin of truth where they started, right? So, let's just use vampires for an example. So a vampire cannot enter into your house unless you invite it in.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you think that comes from? That comes from demons. A demon cannot enter into your home unless you invite it in.
Yeah.
So, the more you learn and you study the different theologies, all the dots start to get connected. Now, now instead of it being this huge universe to where it's almost impossible to comprehend, now you're narrowing it down because all the dots are starting to be connected.
Yeah. No, definitely.
You was going to ask that one?
So have you performed an exorcism?
I have. I performed actually about 9 exorcisms, which is full
awesome.
possession exorcisms. Now, when it comes to, I've done exorcisms on homes. I can't even tell you how many of them I've done. I don't even keep count, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's awesome. It's like, obviously, because you watch it on films, and I like Ed and Lorraine Warren, and obviously demonologists as well. We know one, and as I said earlier, you have different methods, but I think obviously watching it on movie to then obviously trying to watch it in real life, I would love to watch it. I would like to witness one for my own kind of training, curiosity. Yeah, it's I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
so
fascinating.
whenever it comes to an actual exorcism, at the point of expulsion, which is where you expel the entity. So the whole point of doing an exorcism is so the Roman Catholics call it the rite of exorcism, the RITE of exorcism, because you are breaking the legal right that the entity has on a person or a place, okay? Which is the entry point, how it got involved in that person's life in the first place. That has to be broken. And if you do not break that, then the entity will still have a legal right to that person. So with a rite of exorcism, has to be very, very detailed on what you are wanting or demanding the entity to do. Okay, so you got to make sure you cross all your T's and dot all your I's, because you don't want to leave that loophole or that back door where the entity will still have the legal right. Now, what happens during a possession or an exorcism, rather, it depends on the strength of the entity itself, okay? So, you have what I call your foot soldiers, which they're strong enough to possess somebody, but, they're weaker of the demonic realm. There's 9 orders of demons, the same as there's 9 orders of angels, okay? So you have your powerful demons, and then you have your lower class, or what we call the foot soldiers. So during a exorcism, things that could possibly happen is sometimes during the exorcism itself, the person will just sit there and cry, okay? So if you're dealing with a lower or a weaker demon, then that person's just going to cry. Sometimes they'll growl, they'll spit at you, they'll curse you. I've seen people's
faces. Were they talking Latin or Hebrew?
Yes, they will talk in Latin or Hebrew. I've seen people's face morph into something that wasn't there. I'll give you a perfect example. I done an exorcism on an elderly man about 4 or 5 years ago, and at the point of expulsion, he ended up getting a huge gash that just appeared out of nowhere down the side of his face. Now, this was a big gaping gash, and when I was there's 3 parts to the actual exorcism ritual itself. When the last part is the healing, the inner healing. So after the expulsion comes the inner healing. Now during that process, I literally watched this gash just close up on its own and just fade away. So, I've seen that they do have superhuman strength. You have to tie them down. Because God knows you don't want it to get loose, because once you start a ritual or an exorcism or deliverance, it depends on what you prefer to call it, you have to complete the ritual. under all circumstances, because if you stop the ritual, then you just unwound everything that you have done previous up into that point. And that entity is going to do everything in its power to stop you from completing the ritual. So with me, I have a team with me. One guy on my team, his job is to solely protect me, when I'm performing it, because I can't stop. I have an assistant that also the rituals that I use takes two people. Okay, so you have me, the minister, and then you have the assistant. They have parts that they say during the ritual as well. And then usually I'll have somebody there to watch the environment, because look, these things will manipulate people's minds, and sometimes during an exorcism they will talk into the family member's mind and manipulate them. And so you gotta not only you gotta worry about the demonic or the dead, but you also got to worry about the living when you do these things. So it can be a very dangerous situation.
Have you got to know the demon's name as well? In movies they always try and force the name out of the demon.
No, you know what? Here's the thing with me. So I don't want to give a demon any more recognition than what it needs. Okay. So I never demand the name. Now, and some people claim, especially the Roman Catholics, they claim that, once the demon has to reveal its name, you're basically taking away its power. Okay. But I do not do that. I do not address the spirit directly, but twice during the ritual. Okay. So I do it without confronting or asking the name of the entity. Now, sometimes during the ritual, the entity will give his name without you even asking for it. It just depends on the entity itself. Now, with that being said, I have went against the same entity more than once. I've done 2 exorcisms with concerning the same entity actually it was 2 different states. Look, these people. So think of it this way: if you get into a fight, right? If somebody beats you up, you want revenge, right?
Yeah.
You're bound and determined you're going to get revenge. Well, these entities are the same way, okay? They have rage, they have anger, and if you defeat them, they want revenge, and they have a way of bringing you back to them. So you always got to be on your heels. But here's the thing with that is demons have a certain way they operate, things that they do. They pretty much have a personality of their own, and you can distinguish these entities by their personality and certain traits and certain things that they do, and that will give it to you where you say, oh, I've been here and I've done this. Also when a client will describe they've seen it, what does it look like? And the very entity that I was telling you, describing earlier, I battled that demon twice. And when that client described to me exactly what that thing looked like, girls, I turned white, because I knew it wanted its revenge, and I knew it was going to be an uphill battle. But I always refer to myself as 2 different people. There's Jereme, the everyday person, and then there's the demonologist. I turn it on when I have to.
Yeah.
Now, when I become the demonologist and I'm in that moment, I don't fear anything, okay? Because I almost look at it as tunnel vision. I know what I have to do, what I have to complete in order, to succeed in the process that I'm doing. Now, afterwards, when you got time to sit there and think about everything that happened, there's times where I've been pretty shook up.
What have I just done? What have I just met?
Can a spirit pretend to be a demon?
No. So here's the thing about demons. Now, most people don't know anything about demons other than what Hollywood tells them. Here is a number 1 rule when it comes to demons. Demons do not want to be known. Okay. Demons also are not going to present themselves as something nasty, okay, until they feel threatened. I tell people all the time, when a demon feels threatened, that's when the nastiness comes out. Okay. But in order to gain, in order for someone to invite the demon into their life, they will disguise themselves and pretend to be a spirit of light. Yeah. Or a young child, something, or a spirit that's harmless. That way you don't feel threatened by it, and you're going to be more prone to getting personal with the spirit. Now, you see, anytime we get personal with the spirit, that is when we are inviting it in, and that is how you can invite a demon into your life, and in fact have the first stage of a demonic haunting start, which is called infestation.
Oh, it's so interesting. Because obviously, so we obviously do paranormal investigation with guests, and we go to, like, I wouldn't say like they're haunted like your films or
they're
like
active.
the demon, but they're very active. And so would it be like you said that they're kind of inviting and they're kind of being your friend?
Well, we do use the Ouija board, don't we?
Yeah.
And some Victorian methods of communication.
Right.
Yeah.
So look, remember this rule. There is no rule anywhere that says demons have to be honest with us, okay? Or spirits for that matter. So, look, always, so anytime I communicate with the spirit, whether I think it's, an earthbound spirit or what, and you've seen Ghost of Morgan City, all right, you see when I communicate with the spirit, I am very direct whenever I communicate with the spirit. I ask a question for it to be answered the way that I asked it. Okay, I don't leave room, for chitter chatter, if you will, because if you do that, then you can make yourself vulnerable. So with that being said, here's another thing that most people don't really understand. So earthbound spirits, okay, they haunt locations. All right, they haunt a location or is attached to something that they were familiar with when they were alive. Okay. Demons do not haunt locations. They want to haunt people. They want to possess or inhabit someone. Okay. So one thing that drives me nuts is this: when paranormal investigators go and do a investigation in a cemetery. So think about this: why would an earthbound spirit hang out in a cemetery where its body is that it has no connection with anymore whatsoever?
No.
It does not make sense,
isn't it?
Yeah.
right? They are going to hang out in a place that they were familiar with when they were alive, a place they feel comfortable. Now, demons, on the other hand, they love to hang out in cemeteries. Do you know why? Because you have grieving loved ones coming to pay respects to the people that has passed away, and they become spiritually vulnerable. Okay, and that, so the demon sits there and says, maybe I can get an entry point here, and start an attachment. And then they know that these paranormal investigators are going to go, do investigations in a cemetery. So they're going to pretend to be Uncle Bob. They're going to pretend to be Uncle Bob so that someone will say, I'm talking to my uncle. Hey, and then next thing you think you're talking to your uncle, so you don't feel threatened. So now you're going to be more prone to getting personal with Uncle Bob, when in fact it's not Uncle Bob.